For me, it was always very important to be grounded in reality when I went into the whole spiritual New Age search. You get bombarded with all these concepts and weird stuff and all sorts of teachings, and it can be really easy. And I see so many people all over the world in these New Age communities, and a lot of people who follow Bashar too. If you discuss with these people in groups and whatnot, you will find that a lot of them are almost complete wackos, because they have bought into all sorts of abstract, intellectualized belief systems that they've just been told or read online or whatever. Or they make their own interpretation of what Bashar says, and they take it literally and make a religion out of it, basically. If you do all these things, you can go completely nuts in the whole New Age community. And this was extremely important for me from the very beginning of my search and into spirituality and self-empowerment, was that everything has to be grounded in my own experience, my own reality, my own direct experience of reality. I cannot just create abstract belief systems and all that nonsense, because you're gonna go get lost and go crazy if you do that. So that's why in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and especially about light and darkness, because this is something that all New Age people talk about all the time. And it took me a good while before I completely understood what was meant by both light and darkness. You intuitively understand it, something about it from the beginning. Obviously, you understand that light is good and darkness is bad or whatnot. That's the primitive understanding of it. And then as your understanding grows and is grounded in reality and your own direct experience, you get a more deeper and more clear understanding about what is meant by light and darkness. Because most people in New Age people, they throw it around like, without never really grounding it in reality. So that's what I'm going to do in this video. So it's quite simple. I talked about these things before also. I mean, light equals awareness. Pure awareness, which also is pure love or pure attention without any projections, is the same as light. That's light and love and awareness is the same thing. But nobody or very few people have a pure awareness. They don't have a pure attention. They don't have a high quality attention because of all the negativity and whatnot they have stored in their unconscious mind. And most of their awareness, or a lot of their awareness, is tied up in being projected through all those filters of negativity and projected on to the world and reflected back to them. But they don't get it because it's so much. It seems chaotic, and they just have a chaotic life because with negative things happening, and they don't understand there is no pattern to it. The pattern only start to emerge when you become conscious enough to realize this. And that's when, the higher mind starts to arrange stuff for you. So it will get you in touch with layers upon layers of negativity in a more logical way. So you deal with one thing at a time, kind of, instead of just getting a negative chaos of a life. You are dealing with one thing, and then that you see it works. Gets you in touch with something buried in your conscious mind, some negative beliefs and whatnot. You let go of those, and you clean those out. You heal, and you sort of graduate to the next level, and it becomes like a logical order of it, and you understand that, hey, this is how life works. But most people don't get that at this time, and most unconscious people in the world, they don't get these things. They think they're just a victim of circumstance. They don't see any pattern from it because they haven't become conscious enough to do that. But the point is, light just means pure awareness, which also equals love. That means awareness with no projections, which nobody is capable of except fully enlightened teachers, and even they might still have some projections left, who knows, but at least they are very pure in awareness, pure in love. Those highest level teachers on the planet, they can be said to have pure awareness, pure love. And that's quite simple to understand. I mean, and darkness is the same as the unconscious stuff that you have lodged in your unconscious mind, that the whole prison complex or the stronghold of darkness that you have lodged in there, of all the negativity and traumas and belief system that are less than positive, and that are negative and whatnot. That's the darkness in you. That's the darkness stronghold that's been created in you from birth until you became an adult. And then you have the choice to work on that or not. And most people don't, but those who do understand what I'm talking about. So that's the darkness in you, but it's more to it than that, because I mean you can call it the shadow side of your beingness. And the reason you have it is because of the traumas you got from being born and whatnot, as I talked about in previous videos. Not going to go into detail about that now, but the point is this darkness is like concentric circles or an onion kind of, and these circles are like karmic loops representing roughly levels of consciousness per layer kind of, but obviously it's more complicated in reality, but you can see it like that. Like you have an onion which is peeled to a certain degree, and that's the level of consciousness you have. And the more of that onion you peel, the higher your level of consciousness becomes, the more awareness you have available to be freed up from being tied up in being projected through these filters of negativity. And that's the whole journey and how it works. And in addition to the stronghold of darkness in you, you also have a negative mass consciousness, or you have a negative ego in the mass consciousness that people call Lucifer. People worship as Lucifer. The elite people do, or the so-called elite. And this is the collective negative shadow, which is basically a projection or created from all the individual shadows or individual negativity that each of the 8 billion people hold on to in their unconscious mind. Creates this shadow being in the mass consciousness that feeds upon the negativity and wants to perpetuate itself and grow, and whatnot. And it uses every vessel it can to do that. Every available source of negativity it can manipulate, and it manipulates everybody through the mind, basically through suggestions in the mind and thoughts and negative emotions being triggered because your unconsciousness negativity complex, negative ego, is being triggered by some event, and this attracts a lot of negative thoughts, and these archon beings are swarming around you, putting all sorts of suggestions on how to take revenge and how to do this and that to get revenge and get even. And you lose your consciousness. You're being basically taken over by this negative entity through the darkness stronghold that it has created in you from birth. And that's how it works. That's how most people they lose consciousness and they do something negative. They say something that hurtful to people or whatnot, and you have it going, and it becomes like a big back and forth game of karmic revenge, negativity, nonsense going on for eons of time. Which is why forgiveness is important, but it can be very difficult. But it's a good way to let go of negativity, is to be able to forgive. But you shouldn't forgive on the surface only. Like, you just want to be spiritual, so you say you forgive this and that. It has to be real. You has to be actual, letting go of the whole thing on the deepest level. You can't just forgive on the surface and think you're finished with it, because then it will come roaring back, rearing its ugly head at some point when you're unaware of it again, when something happens. So it has to be real forgiveness, and that's can be difficult. It depends, but it's the only way to stop the wheel of karma and to grow in consciousness awareness. It's basically a process. The whole thing is a process of forgiveness, because everything in the unconscious mind is from the past anyway. It's all created from the past. So it's all you're basically just holding on to the past. The whole thing is a big clinging to the past, so to speak. But because you couldn't handle those energies and traumas when they happened, because you were too young, and then a lot of stuff was built on top of that. So it's all just forgiveness of the past, really. So you're peeling this onion and all the way down to nothingness, basically. And if you reach nothingness, you become nothingness. You become pure awareness, pure beingness, and pure love. That's the idea. So that's really light and darkness. It's not that difficult to understand, but with this understanding, it's at least it's grounded in reality. But it has to be your reality. It has to be your experience. It has to be your direct experience. You can't just take my word for it, for these things. You have to have your own direct experience of what I'm talking about, and that is you can easily get that by simply observing and being mindful about the mind and what happens in your mind throughout the day, which is something I recommend to do anyway, because that's the only way to grow. You have to be mindful of the mind, or the content of the mind. So you have to use the awareness you have available to be always alert and mindful about what happens in your own mind, what is created in your mind, what comes up, what is being generated. And then, as negative stuff happens and things being triggered and whatnot, you have to be able to let go of those things as best you can throughout the day, every day. And that's how you dismantle the stronghold of darkness, which is keeping your beingness in karmic loops, concentric karmic loops. If there was just one little thing of corruption in your beingness, let's say, you're born with this, there's a single little thing that corrupts your beingness, it still corrupts your whole beingness totally. There is no, gradual corruption. Either your beingness is completely corrupted, or it's completely, uncorrupted, or whole, or full and full of beingness in and of itself. It's uncorrupted. But even the slightest thing will corrupt, that's less than unconditionally loving, will corrupt the beingness completely and create. But if it's only one small thing, let's say, in theory, this is not how it works in practice, but in theory, if it was one small thing, it would create like one karmic loop in your beingness, which would split you up into two beings. Basically, you have the unconscious shadow side, which would project a percentage of awareness through that layer of negativity, giving you the reflection back from the world or from life, and then you had the opportunity to heal that. And if it was only one small thing, you would be able to heal that maybe on the spot or basically quickly, and then boom, you would snap back to being your full beingness, basically being enlightened, being one with consciousness and reality and everything and the universe and love and having full awareness again. That's how it would work if you had only a small, but it would still corrupt your beingness completely and put you into a karmic loop until, and you go round and round in that loop like a merry-go-round until you understood the lesson and you saw the pattern and you looked inside instead of blaming outside, and then you took care of it. And then you snap back to being wide open beingness again. In reality, or in practice, it doesn't really work like that on this planet, at least, because there's so much negativity, and when you get corrupted in such a young age, like as soon as you're born, basically, you get corrupted, and usually more severely than just a little thing, even if you have decent parents, because of all the negativity in them and also all the negativity in the mass consciousness and whatnot. I talk about this many times in different videos, but the point is, in practice, it becomes like a clusterfuck already from the start of different things, and then these things are added onto that, like in concentric layers, like an onion, until you become adult, basically, because most children don't practice mindfulness and awareness and healing, anything. You can't really do that until you become of a certain age. At least in practice, that doesn't happen often, but maybe you can. But most kids don't. They rather just blame whatever happened. They don't really take responsibility in that sense. But that's something you have to learn or come to understand when you become adult or become old enough to get that, how that works. But most people who are adults, so-called, they don't even get it, their whole life. So they spend their whole life blaming and never getting these things. But that's the point. In reality, in practice, it becomes a much worse corruption of your beingness than just a simple single little speck of dust. It becomes something much more severe, which means it takes a much more effort, and it's more difficult to completely heal everything in one lifetime. But it's possible. At least get the far up the scale as possible. But especially these days when so much is happening and everything is geared towards helping people doing that. The whole point of coming here these days is to help the planet and help yourself in the process. But anyway, the point of this talk is to just explain the importance of keeping things grounded in something that you have a direct experience with, which you can get by being mindful of the mind and observing how it works, and then dismantling it as best you can on the way, every day, or on the path towards more awareness. And then you have an idea of what is meant by darkness and light. When New Age people talk about that, you have an actual physical description of how it works, even though you can call it metaphysical, but everything is basically physical. Physics is just degrees of subtleties. Even thoughts and feelings are actually physical things on a certain plane. But for us, they're more not so physical, but they're on the mental plane and whatnot. These things are physical, and the thought beings that insert negative thoughts are definitely physical, but not for us. But they're more perceivable for schizophrenics who perceive them directly. Often even visually, you can sometimes see them, but intuitively you can see them visually sometimes. I've done that a few times myself in other people. So everything is basically physical. It's just like degrees of physicality, so to speak. It's not, your car is obviously more physical to you than your thoughts, but they're still physical things, so to speak. And it's actually good to see it like that. It's just it's a more subtle subtle dimension, but it's still physical stuff. The unconscious stuff in your unconscious mind is also physical stuff. It's in your aura, in your field. It could be detected by equipment if we had much more advanced science, and ETs and Bashar and these people can see it directly. They see us as energy beings. They don't see us as physical bodies. They see us more like an energy field, and how the level of corruption, everything is visually available to these beings. And even I think even enlightened teachers many of them can even perceive your energy being physically, like it's a physical thing. It's basically fourth density of 4D perception, which many of us will be able to have soon in the not too distant future, hopefully, if the whole upgrade of the planet goes successfully. And on that note, I'm gonna end this video. And I know it's been a while since I've made one, but I had some problem with my equipment. Now it's been fixed, so I hope to make some more soon.